Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins 10 years after former Army Captain John Brennick escaped from a maximum security prison. He's now hiding out with his son Danny in the rural mountains of North America on the run from the evil government corporation Mendenhall. He's told to return home immediately as 3 strangers are waiting for him at their cabin with his wife Karen. John's old friend Nestor accompanies the Mendenhall's executive Stanley with the plans for the company's power station to deliver to the resistance. They're joined by Brenner's former army friend Rivera to convince him to help, saying that what's left of Mendenhall is on the verge of collapsing. He still refuses in order to protect his family, so the trio departs when 2 Mendenhall helicopters arrive, having followed them to John's location. The rebels retreat on the water while John and his family begin to enact their escape plan through some old tunnels beneath the mountain. He sets up his shotgun to buy them more time and sends Danny and Karen through an underground passage while he leads the soldiers in a different direction. He manages to destroy one of the helicopters with a rocket launcher, but the second blows his jeep off the road with the order of bringing him in alive. John's then captured in a net by the pilot and put to sleep while the rest of the soldiers burn down his cabin. Sometime later he wakes up in his underwear inside a Mendenhall prison, again operated by its director Peter Teller. He watches everything from the monitors in his office as John's injected by the facility's computer system Zed with a neural implant that works its way into his brain. It's made to cause painful headaches when inmates enter prohibited areas of the prison, but is called a behavior modification device. When he's put with other prisoners in co-ed confinement, John sees Stanley's been captured, but his implant malfunctions, leaving him brain damaged. Teller's stepmother Susan calls him an idiot for bringing the only person to ever escape a Mendenhall prison to their power station. She tells him that father wouldn't be pleased with his decisions, then ends the call, but Teller seems like he has a personal vendetta against John. The new inmates get put into general population, where Brenner meets 2 of his roommates, Marcus, who's as friendly as could be, and Max, who just sits in silence. Rivera was also incarcerated when they were blown out of the water, but hasn't seen Stan until John points him out wandering around clueless. One of the other new inmates, Wells, begins a prison-wide fight where he and everyone else who messes with the big girl is beaten up. Teller watches on the cameras as Zed subdues the entire riot with their implants, except for Stanley, who just can't feel a thing anymore. The She-Hulk powers through to strangle a guard, so John kicks her in the face, allowing the riot to be ended and the headaches to finally end. It makes John an enemy of Wells, but friendly with the guard Gordon, who most likely would have been killed if it weren't for him. The guard Sato's ordered to bring Brenner to the warden and attempts to walk him into an unauthorized zone, but John's not falling for it. He's taken to the warden, who claims to be the director of all Mendenhall prisons, including the fortress that John destroyed in his escape 10 years ago. Revealing that the government has eyes on his family, John lashes out, but is restrained by Zed while Teller gets on the cameras to begin flexing his powers. He announces over the intercom that the prisoners are only alive until he chooses otherwise, then broadcasts a video of the riot instigator's execution. She's blown out an airlock into orbit, revealing that their new prison's actually a space station which uses solar energy to generate power. The population is woken every morning by the same annoying video and gets made to work in a salvage yard, turning scrap metal into new panels. John, Marcus, Max, and a red shirt are selected to go outside in space suits and repair damaged panels in an endless cycle of collecting energy. Gordon feels bad about the way Teller executes prisoners, saying nobody deserves it, but Sato's a psycho and gets off on torturing them. When the next meteor shower hits the space station, he's all too happy to watch if the prisoners make it back alive, while Gordon stresses out. They all make it inside, apart from the unnamed prisoner who's shredded by little meteorites like bullets, while the others watch. They all get back to work and John begins devising a plan to escape when he discovers a water delivery shuttle designed to haul ice to the space station. He welcomes the friendly Captain Hickey, who's a mercenary hired by Mendenhall and has been teaching his new recruit to fly the ship. At the end of the day, Brenner is attacked by Wells in the locker room, but he just takes having his nose broken to leave him alone. Zed doesn't do anything about it by order of Teller, who says that he enjoys watching violence, especially when it involves John. Meanwhile, Brenner's also being harassed by Rivera to find them a way to escape, but he doesn't fully trust her to let her in on the plan. She attempts to convince him, saying that John is never going to see his wife and child again, but he rejects her advances and says he'll die trying then. The next day, Rivera proves herself trustworthy by stealing a guard's weapon for John, and he hides inside a crate when the cameras aren't watching. Rivera then passes the crate through security, hoping to send John back to his family, but he finds himself still in prison and the butt of Teller's joke. The warden then reduces the inmates' rations by half and has Brenner thrown inside the station's solitary confinement as punishment. It's a tiny room where John's exposed to radiation as it's facing the sun and freezing cold temperatures when it orbits the Earth. After over 30 hours inside, John's taken out of the hole and returned to Gen Pop, where inmates aren't happy that he got their rations cut in half. A locked-up gang leader, Mr. Kerensky, demands Rivera as payment, but John denies the Russian's request as she's not his to give. He sits with Marcus, who's freaked out at the sight of Stanley's pet roach Newman, while Rivera and Max have noticed the security cameras aren't actually monitoring them. When they return to the bunks, Max begins going crazy at the lady in the TV and headbutts it repeatedly until it smashes. The tech-savvy Marcus finds a frequency modulator for changing the channels hidden inside and steals it to try get it working. The next day he takes parts from old devices they're made to strip down, while John gets removed from the rest of the group for special duty. Sato takes him to a scrap yard where a vengeful Wells waits with a flaming torch, and like always the warden tells Zed to just let it happen. Avoiding his wild swings for the most part, John's almost killed by Wells when Gordon arrives to save him but is knocked unconscious right away. It allows John to get to his back and put a leak in his tank, causing Wells to completely catch on fire and blow up inside a container. Sato enters pretending like he has no idea what happened, while Teller apologizes for the failures of Zed, and Gordon successfully paid back his life debt. In the mess hall, one of the gang picks a fight with Sato, so he has Zed turn off the man's implant, allowing them to put on a show for the prisoners. Our main group leaves the hall to discover that Marcus has already built a TV remote and they're able to change the frequency to the security cameras. They find out that the warden hasn't been using their cameras at all and is instead watching them through their optic nerves using their implants. While devising a plan to escape, they notice that the Russians aren't even paying attention to the fight and it's just a distraction for something else. Max reveals he's also Russian and has deciphered coded conversations through the gang's games of chess to learn that they're also planning an escape. He teaches John the basics so that he can converse with Kerensky and learn that they have an escape shuttle arriving tomorrow but need help shutting down the implants. John's team takes care of that part of the plan and luckily finds among Stanley's collection of junk an implant separated from its host that he says he just found. They rig it up to Newman while Sato's held back by Gordon from finishing off the Russian and tells his co-worker not to touch him again or he kills him. He gets ordered to visit the warden's office, so the group deploy Newman, knowing that the hungry bug will follow the guard inside looking for food. The implant sets off alarms in the restricted area, but Sato thinks it's just a glitch and finds the warden at his computer leering at pictures of John's wife. Our group loses contact with Newman after getting the door codes and send in Stan to access the restricted area since he's unaffected by his implant. He finds the office and gains access to Zed's computer but isn't able to turn it off, so the rest of the group power through the headaches to reach him. They destroy the machine enough to ease the pain when the escape shuttle pulls up and all of the waiting Russians jump on board. Before the main group can make it to the shuttle bay, they betray Max, shooting him dead and leaving the prison without them. Luckily they did, because despite Zed's defenses being down, Teller uses a mounted turret to shoot the shuttle out of the sky, killing everyone on board. He's immediately met by Susan, who scolds him for killing prisoners and using Zed to spy on Brenner's family. When he recaptures John, she has another go at him, so Teller finally cracks and decides to space his own stepmother along with Brenner. The warden orders his guards to jettison John into space first, but Nestor's on the team and slips him one of their weapons. When the door opens, John holds his breath and directs himself towards the airlock across from him before using the device to re-enter the prison. He then blows open the inner airlock doors, which, due to Hickey crashing into the docks at the same time, security don't hear John. Teller then attempts to space Susan, thinking that the previous one was a success, but Rivera attacks him, distracting the guards and allowing her to escape. The outer door that John entered suddenly gives out and the section of the station decompresses, needing it to be closed off manually. John seals off one door while stumbling across Susan, and she promises Mendenhall will give him a pardon should he help her. He just laughs at the notion and abandons her to do it by herself while leaving to reconnect with his team. Susan contacts Earth for someone to send a rescue, but her evil stepson overhears her talking about Brenner, learning that he's still alive. They're unable to use the implant as Sato turned it off only minutes earlier when he thought that John was dead. The damage to Zed still prevents it from helping in any way, so Teller sends guards to begin sealing off the facility before it collapses in on itself. John sends his team to Hickey's shuttle to evacuate, while he returns to the control room to try destroy the station before departing. Sato's running around trying to seal off the facility and comes across John trying to do the opposite. He gets saved by Gordon, who doesn't want Sato killing anyone else, but he's hit with a lethal shock from his baton, giving his life for John. The two begin fighting until Sato's knocked back and his hand accidentally opens up a door to the outside. John kicks him into space, finally ridding himself of the menace, while the director learns about all of the staff's deaths from Zed. It warns Teller that the prisoners are escaping, but the computer's still unable to do anything to prevent it, so he leaves with Nestor to do it himself. The warden and his last remaining guard secure the depressurized section of the station while the prisoners make it onto the ice tug with Hickey. Susan lies, saying that she saw John get shot dead to try to convince them to leave, but Rivera punches her out and tells them they're waiting. Meanwhile, John finds the control panel to the prison's turret and lines up the station to fire on itself when Teller gets the drop on him. When he's about to execute John, he activates the gun, beginning the destruction of the station while avoiding the warden's gunfire as he escapes. Teller gives chase, but when he orders Nestor up a set of stairs, he prematurely announces his switch to the other side, getting him shot to death when he could have just waited. He then apologizes to John for everything that he's done before grabbing a live wire and throwing his body over the railing. Firing from a puddle of water courtesy of the ice haulers, Teller gets electrocuted while everyone else makes it safely on board the escape shuttle. They depart the space station as it blows up behind them and return to Earth, appearing like a shooting star from the surface. The final scene shows John reunite with his wife and child, having once again successfully avoided capture by Mendenhall. And the movie ends.